I had a conversation this past week with a leader who I'm working with. Fantastic leader. He is really picking up a lot. And one of the things that he brought to our conversation was some of the difficulties he was having in an exchange with some of his team members. And when he and I started to talk about it, we recognized that he had specified one task, and there were all of these implied tasks that he didn't specify, that he was assuming or thinking that the other person knew to do, or that they recognized was important. And what he quickly found was these implied tasks, they get no love. They oftentimes are not recognized or not clearly communicated. Now here's where we're gonna go in a fun direction today. We're gonna break things down. We're gonna use a sample scenario, and we're gonna break things down to not only get the difference between specified and implied tasks, we're also gonna take this a step further to say, what are the technical tasks that are specified and implied? And what are the mindsets, behaviors, communication choices that people make that are both specified and implied? And as we go through this, I'm confident you're gonna see what I saw and what this leader saw. We'll call him Jeff because that's not his name. What Jeff saw, that the mindsets, behaviors, and communications is really where things go well or things get off track fast, especially in the implied side. So let's jump into that. So let's say you're given the job to work with a cross-functional team to figure out problem X. You're not gonna execute that solution. Your job is to come up with it. So that's your job, is to work with, I'm gonna use some abbreviations, work with a cross-functional team to determine a solution. Great. I think that sounds pretty easy. Well, the mindset, behavior, communication, what you do is really work with. And this is, if you're thinking, well, that sounds pretty vague, good on you, because it is. Here's what can happen is we oftentimes will put focus into this and no focus into this, because this isn't clearly laid out. This is where people will tend to make assumptions. So let's jump into the implied tasks that are part of working with a cross-functional team. One thing might be, oh, you're gonna get the team together. Get all the team members together. Sounds easy enough, great place to start. You wanna define the problem. Obvious. Perhaps in there you want to brainstorm options. You want to evaluate those options. And after that, you want to select the best ones and then write up a plan. And you're probably thinking, yeah, that sounds good. And it does. These are the implied technical tasks as a part of working with a cross-functional team to come up with a solution. Now, what's really missing in there? What's really missing in there is, what are all the mindsets, behaviors, and communications that are implied as a part of this? This is where we're going to do a much deeper dive for the rest of this discussion. This is where you're going to begin to see that oftentimes when things don't go to plan, it's not because of the implied technical tasks that are left out, it's the implied behavioral tasks that are left out, that are unspecified. So let's jump into that. Some of the first implied behavioral tasks that you can bring to the table are to welcome team members. Remember, these are things that may seem obvious to you, and they may not be obvious to others. So as we go through this, if you think, gosh, that seems obvious, there may be parts in here where you want to really specify for folks, this is gonna be essential. Please be sure to do some of these things. So we're gonna throw a bunch of them out. We're gonna have these also in a nice clean document on the Wingspan Performance website with this blog, so you'll be able to use this later. So welcome team members is the first one. Learn their skills and background. Now you're getting a chance to understand them. You want to share the situation fully with them so that you're not assuming that they know, because sometimes people will think, well, they know what's going on because I know what's going on. Nah, not necessarily. So let's keep going here. You want to define parameters for success. So that's not just what is successful, it is what does success create for our team. All right, what else? You want to ask questions. You may think, gosh, that seems pretty obvious. And to you, it may be. To others, it may not be. That the leader, remember, you're talking now for the leader of this effort. These are things that are critical for them to do. Some other ones might be have an open mind. Because sometimes the leaders will get in there and think, well, I know the answers. Everyone else is here just to support this. I'm not really sure why everyone's necessary. That's where choosing to have an open mind is so important. Encouraging team members to speak up or to share. That can be another one that is forgotten, overlooked, etc. Define the problem process. Define the process of solving and where the team is in that process. Sometimes it can be easy for someone to think, well, I know where we are in this problem-solving process. We're going to go through these things. The kicker, though, is if other people don't know, you may be, in your head, you're here at Evaluate, and people keep wanting to define or brainstorm, and you're thinking, well, golly, how come they keep going back? Because you're not explicitly saying, hey, this is the process, and here's where we are now. Now it's time to move to this step. So if you're sitting there, again, perhaps thinking, wow, I hadn't considered that, you're not alone. Most people don't. And especially from a leadership position, most people will think, well, these things are obvious, and some of them may be. And this is where it's going to be really important for you to determine when you assign a task to somebody at a particular level, how clear are they on this? How much experience do they have with some of these implied behavioral components? How many times have they led teams before? What pieces of this are going to be really important for them? Especially if, remember, this is a cross-functional team. So in this scenario, these are people who that leader may not have worked with all the time. They may not have familiarity. So this is where some of these initial behavioral choices that may seem obvious to you and obvious to the success of this effort may not be obvious to that person, and they also may be exceptionally critical so that you're really leveraging the full experience that the team brings to the table. So this is a simple example. It's also an important, and it was a really powerful conversation with that leader I was working with this week. So we wanted to capture this idea and share this with you all. And again, we're going to put a list of these implied behavioral and communication tasks on our website using this scenario as a starting point, just to give you an idea of how that could look so that you're really clear for yourself and for others on what these things could look like. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to our weekly blog, you can do that at wingspanperformance.com. That way you'll get videos like this in addition to our written content. If you've got you really like the videos, you can also just hit the subscribe button right here on YouTube. Please let us know what other topics or content ideas you would like us to do a video on, and we'll be sure to put that into the list. Have a great one. Love to hear what you do with this, so please be sure to share that with us as well. Thanks.